Everyone, are we live? I think we're live, Greg. Today we're talking about websites and the checklist that you must have organized for your website when you're looking at websites. And here come all the animals.
Just in time, as soon as you
Just
go
in
live.
time. As soon as I go live, the animals show up. I'm not used to distractions. All right. So, Greg, do you want to this is a list that you had on hand, and I looked through it. Okay, doggy.
Hey,
Okay.
there you go. He just wants a
Okay,
kiss.
no. Okay, no. Okay, lie down. Lie down. Good dog. Lie down. Okay. Anyways.
Now we know why it's a madhouse at Pip and Phelan when they
I
drink.
know this is Peaches, everyone. Peaches, say hello to everyone. Okay. So,
So
yes.
yeah, thanks everybody. Hopefully we've got a couple of people joining us this afternoon. We had our we attempted our 11 o'clock time and it just wouldn't work. The internet
I
was kind of spotty, and it wasn't going to come through clear. So we figured we'd postpone it and do an afternoon. Hopefully, everybody will stick around and listen to the topic, which is must-have website checklist. Yes, as you mentioned, we've done this topic before, but we figured it was a while ago and could probably use maybe a little bit more of an explanation on some of the points that were in this,
Yeah.
which we are going to post the checklist later so you can look through the whole thing. But we're going to go through it again today and just recap what's still valid and if anything new needs to be added.
Yeah, so I think that actually on one of our previous videos, we covered the design aspects of websites. So we're going to actually put that link in the comments also and not hit too much detail on that because we've covered that in quite a bit of detail on another
Mhm.
video. So we will link that for you to make that easier. And so let's get started on this list. Let's start with design, Greg, and we can just hit the main points. How about that?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing with design is for it to be clean and clear and well represent your brand. Um, you don't want a website that's really cluttered, things are all over the place, or not, laid out easily for people to pick up. Look at a certain part and see what it is you're trying to, what information you're trying to give them. If things are too close together or like too many multicolors, things like that, it's distracting and you won't get your message across as well as having something that's just clean and clear.
Yeah. So some of those things include things like high contrast, easily readable font. You want to make sure that you have your call to action above the fold line. And if you don't know what the fold line is, that's a newspaper term and it means before you have to scroll anything. It should be nice and clear up at the top. And you want to make sure that you're thinking about the white space as giving as just as important in the design as the actual elements themselves. Some people think that they think about the elements and not the white space, but the white space leaves a nice space for our brains to relax and be able to focus in on the one or two things that you want your viewer to focus in on. Do you know what I mean? So idea, what your job is to direct the viewer through the page and actually through the website, and take the actions that you want them to take.
Yeah. Man, I was going to say something and then I just forgot.
That's
Uh,
my line.
yeah, and one other big thing would be the mobile ready version. I know we
Yeah.
hammer this home to people all the time about
Yeah.
having your website be good on mobile, but I mean, there is mobile design as well, right? And how things flow in the mobile view, and you should definitely consider that aspect of your site, not just the desktop design as well.
For sure. There's something that I found out just yesterday because, of course, I have somebody who looks after my mobile views. But if you have a drop down menu on your main site, then you want to get rid of that on your mobile because the functionality works differently. So if you have any drop down menus, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can actually just go there and test your links and your drop down links. Test it to make sure that it opens up. But if you've got it open in new window, then it won't actually do anything. It doesn't work the same way as it does on a desktop. So
Mm.
what we recommend, I'm sure that I can say we for Greg also, is that you actually can streamline your design. So you're not going to actually have every single element necessarily that you have on your desktop showing up on your mobile. So you want to have those main pages, options to get to those main pages. You want to have things that are not going to make people go down and down and down and down and down through 50 million stacked images.
Yeah.
That's
So
that type of thing.
this is a good transition also into our next category, which is content. And further to what you were saying is when you do have a mobile menu that maybe has less menu items, it's really important to have those links to those additional pages within your content and on the main pages themselves. So
Yeah.
and that would fall under content and linking, interlinking your site to other pages on your site, which would become even more important in that aspect on the mobile if you don't have all of them in the menu.
That's right. That's exactly right. All right, so what else for content then?
So content had a bunch of things. You've already mentioned this as a design element as well. The clear calls to action, super important for your content,
Yeah.
and high quality images, optimized images are important. Well written copy that's properly readable,
Yeah.
still valid today, even more so with the changes for with how search engines are indexing. You can't just keyword stuff anymore. Your copy needs to be written
For
well,
people,
and yeah, for people, and actually provide something to them. So
value.
focus on that a lot.
Yeah. So there's this kind of nice fine line of, because marketing is a little bit different. I was actually just listening to this really interesting podcast the other day, and what they were saying is to strip your strip your story down so that it's going to give people just enough information so that they know what you do. Get rid of the jargon. Get rid of your story. Get rid of a whole lot of stuff, and that is difficult when you think about keywords because if you want to rank for keywords, you need a little bit more content. So you got to find that nice sweet spot between having too much stuff that you're confusing your viewer, and but making sure that they know what you do, but not everything that you do. Just the very sort of most basic descriptors. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Other content related stuff that I find important are forms to capture leads. If you have a call to action to a specific that you're collecting specific information or like name, phone number, email, things like that. It's easiest to have some type of a form where you can collect and they can get in touch with you quickly. Newsletters are really important for content to collect emails, and for local, definitely a map and your contact info.
Yeah, that's great. And I just want to talk a little bit more about call to actions. You should be thinking about your call to actions I like to have two sort of main call to actions throughout the site. One is the "Will you marry me?" for the people who are ready to buy right now. So that would be book a call, get a quote, call us, those kinds of things. The other one is for the people who aren't quite ready, they're still in the research mode. That would be, will you date me? So one is will you marry me, one is will you date me, and you want to have sort of think about it like that. You don't want to have too many will you date me type things throughout and not one will you marry me question. Do you know what I mean? You need to have, you want to have them buying from you as soon as possible. So make sure you're actually asking them or giving them an opportunity to buy from you.
And the "Will you date me" type of call to action, what kind of
Oh yeah,
call
that's
to action would that be?
newsletter. Sign up to the newsletter where you can nurture that lead.
Basically, something where they don't have to commit and buy something, but
Yeah,
you're still getting some type of information from them, or they're engaging with you in
that's right.
starting to engage with you in some way.
That's right. I actually think of it more as it's a way for me to get information to them rather than me getting information from them. Right.
Right.
So yeah, so it could be for some clients it's actually better for them to have Instagram rather than email if they're actually on Instagram all the time and do a lot of sales on Instagram and do IGTV. I just noticed another client that I was looking at. They don't really do much on the newsletter and they're always on Instagram, so that makes sense to have the "Will you date me" call to action as an Instagram connection.
Right. So people don't say "Will you date me" as a call to action. Just
Well, yeah, that's a different kind of website. All right.
yeah, as far as content, do you have anything else do you want to say, or should we move on to next items?
Yeah, fresh content. The other thing that I wanted to say is regarding blog articles. Make sure you're actually reviewing old blog articles and upgrading them rather than continually writing new content all the time. If you're not refreshing your SEO opportunities, then you're not making the most of the content that you've already got. And I am, as if you've listened to my, you know, making the most of your content video, you'll know that I really want people to leverage that content until there's nothing to leverage out of it ever again.
So that brings up a little bit of a question. I wouldn't mind hearing what you think is about customers who have sites that have been around for quite a long time and they've maybe been blogging for like 10 years, say. A lot of those old blog posts, if they become irrelevant to their business or um, just don't have anything to do with what they're currently doing. Do you have specific advice on that type of content, like
Yeah,
leaving it there,
yeah.
or refreshing it
Sometimes.
somehow, or
Yeah,
removing it altogether?
yeah. So my favorite thing to do is to refresh. So sometimes you can just update the content and then circulate it again. So of course I'm all about distribution. No point in having content if you're not distributing. So refresh and redistribute. And if it's old, like, okay, so I've got a software company on my roster, and it's always a problem for them because they launch a new piece of software or a new update, and then, the next year there's a different update. So, what do I do with those? So, sometimes I'll still circulate them, and it will be framed like, remember when we did this, or something like that. It's
Hmm.
because if the page still ranks for keywords, and in this particular industry, it's a really new technology. So lots of people aren't really up to date with it, anyways. So they're still using the older keywords to find information on that industry. And so there's still usefulness to those keywords. So I don't get rid of it. We frame the blog post differently. So we'll create an introduction to sort of make sure that everyone knows that there's the new, or maybe it's a conclusion paragraph where they know that there's a more up-to-date blog article that they should look at. If you enjoyed this, then you'll want to see our latest edition of this software, and it points to another. So internal linking is always great. And then I still distribute it, especially on Twitter or on Facebook, as a Throwback Thursday or something like that, and it'll be more like a memory lane type post. It still really helps to get the traffic. I have one blog on my site that is completely irrelevant because you can't actually do the thing that I'm teaching people how to do, but it is the page that people find us the most from. So I'm not getting rid of that, like I'm not going to get rid of
But the people
that.
that are finding the page are the proper people that you would be looking for?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that, but yes, in a way, yes, because they're looking to improve their Google My Pages
Right,
um,
right.
page. So yes,
Yeah, I think
ultimately,
my,
yes.
my general rule would probably be, as long as the content somehow still relates to anything that your business does still,
Yes.
then it's still going to be, it still can be relevant, refreshed, and used for that potential traffic.
Yeah, that's right. And then the last thing, oh, we do have I keep forgetting to look. We have lots of people on here. We've got Flora. Hey Flora. We've got Mona. Nice to see you. Phelan's on there. Okay, questions. No questions, but that's great. I'm so glad you guys are there. And Flora's all about the negative space. Of course you are, Flora. You're an excellent designer. I love you. Okay, so back to, yeah. So the last version. So if something really doesn't work, if it's like embarrassingly doesn't work, there are no keywords, it's not getting any traffic, there's just really no hope, then it's fine to set. I call it sunsetting. I don't like deleting. And the way that
Mm.
you sunset a blog article is that you create a redirect. You don't just delete the page. You have to actually create a redirect. And then I usually just make the page a draft. I never delete anything because you never know when that's going to come round again for some reason. And
Right.
but definitely create a redirect. I have so many people that are doing the DIY stuff and they take my training and they have deleted, like, I don't know, half of their blog, and they don't set up the redirect. So they just actually, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. You've spent all that time writing all that content, and yes, okay, I understand it doesn't resonate anymore for you. You've changed your branding somewhat. It doesn't speak to you. You're not excited. You might even be embarrassed because it's your old videos or something like that. Our first videos. I mean, I still feel like that with all my videos, but your new stuff, you might just really be that. It might be cringeworthy, but still, I keep all mine because I like to show people that you can still get results from something that is less than perfect.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I think people just love deleting things and keeping things clean. And partly, well, as far as WordPress is concerned, when you go into a page or a post section, I don't think a lot of people realize that when you initially go to these places, you're looking at all posts, whether published, draft, or what have you. And I think if they knew about the fact that they could just look through published or just look through draft posts,
Yeah.
so that they didn't see everything there,
All
people
right.
would maybe delete things less because they don't want it there. They don't want to see it there if it's not published, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a tip, everyone. If I'm sure everybody knows, but when you go to these places, either pages or posts, you can actually look at only published or only draft
That's that's right.
lists. So
In the search section. Yeah, that is true. That is true. That is a good tip. So we should move along because I'm just looking at the time. We have 10 minutes and a couple more sections to this list. So
yeah, the The next section on the list here was hosting and security, and I know you had something that you wanted to say definitely about hosting, but we can quickly go through a couple of these here. You always want to find yourself a good, reliable host. You always want to make sure you've got an SSL certificate set up for your site. Um, a couple other things: configure a backup plugin. To make sure you're, and this is, I think, where you were
Yes, I have something to say
wanting
about
to
this.
get something in there. So why
Yes,
don't you go for
yes.
it?
Okay, thank you. So most of the host providers that people start out with, especially if it's like the $2.99, the $15.99, whatever it is around that price range a month, is called DIY hosting, right? So even if you pay for the auto backup and restore, there's one company who will remain nameless because I don't want to slam them, but oh my goodness, talk about extortion. So what you have to do is if you have a backup, an automatic backup, you have to actually organize to get that backup off server, because if you get your files um, infected on your hosting, your website files, well, your backup files are like right next door in the next file folder. So if you're, it takes like seconds before between the point, and who knows if your backup files get infected first, I don't know. But everything's infected. And these sites, these hosting, or they will offer to restore, but they'll charge you like, I had one client quoted $750 for, it took me 3 hours to restore it. And there's another client on another hosting, and they charged him 350, and it was only a couple hours to restore it. So it's not like it's hard. It's just you're not in control of your stuff, and you want to actually be in control of your stuff. So take that backup off site. There are lots of ways to do that. You can just use a backup plugin and send it to a Dropbox folder somewhere, or some other space that's online but not on the same server. Otherwise, you can work with a full serve hosting provider, and they will do it for you. That's the full serve part.
Yeah, there's something to be said with, good hosting that will have you a little bit, set your mind at ease knowing that things are being taken care of, right?
Yeah,
If you
for
go the
sure.
deep route, you're gonna have to, you're gonna get what you pay for, and you
Yeah.
might have to do a bunch of these extra things yourself to keep yourself protected and safe and things. So I think a lot of the time people look at the prices and go like, well, why is this one so much more? And they only think about maybe the server equipment, or the
Yeah.
the drives that are being used, solid state, or
Yeah. Bandwidth and
and things
CPU
like
and all that. Yeah, the technical
exactly.
stuff.
They think of that more than the actual service behind the hosting. So there's
Yeah,
more to consider when getting hosting.
that's right. All right. So the other things to consider is to make sure that you have an spam malware a malware monitor. So some kind of malware plugin that's checking for the least things. So the free malware ones they're okay. They're not great, but they definitely provide some kind of um, security. And they also send you these great emails that tell you when certain plugins need big patches, when there are big problems. So it's good to be on those email lists. Also, I would put a CAPTCHA up on any of your forms so that you're not getting a whole lot of spam. And then make sure that you're changing your passwords. Now, when it comes to passwords, um, what's really important is, all the ones that are auto-generated, and that it talks about how they're the strongest and they have like the numbers and
Hmm.
symbols and everything. Those are
Yeah.
actually the easiest ones for programs, automatic programs to siphon through, because if you think about it, it's just random. So they just keep cycling through the various um, I forgot what the word is, the various organization of those things, and eventually they will find it. So I recommend doing things like long words that might be spelt wrong or don't you normally go together, and then have your symbols and numbers interdispersed, and probably not using the numbers instead of vowels because that's a pretty easy one. The other thing is all of your admin accounts should never say admin because that's really easy to figure out. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my client sites I can guess the login when I don't have it because I start with admin or the name of their company, and then I usually use a password that they have on their Facebook or LinkedIn, and then it's really easy to figure it out. So don't do things like that, and definitely don't use the same password as you're using for your banking or your email. Your banking and your email should always be separate. And then the other things that I think we should talk about are, yeah, keeping your software updated. That's another part of the DIY. Um, if you don't have anyone maintaining your site, a lot of people just buy a site. They pay like $1,500. They get someone to do it for that amount because it's a template. They put it up on the cheap hosting, and then they just leave it there forever. And you need to keep your plugins updated. I think we've talked a lot about that. I think that's my one thing. If you don't keep your plugins updated, you run into problems down the line because you'll end up having to update them. But when you update them from like point A to point M, and you skip out B, C, D, E, F, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. Sites break more easily when that happens.
There's a
And
lot more risk, yeah.
yeah, totally. And you don't know when your plugins have been abandoned. So third-party plugins are built by developers, by random developers, or small companies or big companies. And if you've chosen one where the company has sunsetted it, or the developer has taken on a more than full-time job, or started their own business, or whatever it is, and they're not paying attention, or they just decide purposefully that they're going to sunset their plugin, then there's like little bits of space between the plugin code and your WordPress site code, which means that that's where the hackers get in. That's where the viruses get in. We have 3 minutes, and I'm running out of battery power. So, Greg, do you want to do the optimization stuff, or any last minute things? And we're gonna put this checklist up for you, anyways. So
Yeah, I
there's a
think
starting point
the SEO thing is probably the
on
most
another.
important to get through
Yeah.
quick. And I
Okay.
know basically for the SEO, definitely go back and watch last week's Geek Speak, which
Right.
was with Pip and Phelan. They did a really good talk on SEO and keywords. Check that out. But you want to make sure you've got titles and meta descriptions for sure, alt text on images, keywords in your header, and use keywords in your links. Those are some of the basics.
Yeah.
Sitemap, so and so. There's a bunch. We will post this so that you can look through the whole thing. Lastly, to get through on the list, I just want to mention the analytics, because we all know we need to know how our website is performing, how the things we're doing marketing wise are performing. So that's obviously going to be something on our list. So set up analytics, Search Console, maybe Data Studio, whatever your preferred ones are, so that you can in fact go in and see how the things you're doing are performing, see how much traffic you're getting, what you're converting, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Okay, we have exactly 1 more minute. Are there any questions? All of a sudden the comments have stopped, so I'm not sure if I'm just not connected to them anymore, but we'll check the Facebook group after this to make sure that we answer all of them. Um, yeah. I'm just going through here and seeing if there's any last minute things that I wanted to add, but I think that's good. So what's coming up next week, Greg? Do we know?
You know what? It's a good question.
I forgot to look.
Not, no, I could tell you in 1 second though.
All right, let's see if
Next
you can
week
do it.
is an introduction to Google Ads.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Hmm.
That's going to be a good one. Everyone needs to know this, especially if you don't understand or are easily intimidated by,
I know, I know, I'm in
oh,
that
yeah.
one, and I'm gonna assume it's with Pip since it's Google Ads.
Okay. So Mona's talking about bots on her, traffic bots on her site. Yeah, that's a drag. So I think you can filter out that in your analytics,
You can,
Mona. Yeah,
yeah.
but I don't know that you can do anything to actually stop it. Just filter it. That's the best we can do. Is that right, Greg? Do you know anything about that?
Well, unless you know IP addresses of where bots are coming
Right.
from, that could be possible. But
Yeah.
it's easier just to try to filter out bot traffic from your regular traffic.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And yes, I think actually I have um, blacklisted IP addresses from certain sites, especially if they're trying to. That's what a malware. That's what a malware plugin will do. It'll tell you when you're getting a bot attack, and then it'll give you the IP address, and then you can go in and block that IP address. So that's super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be good for a future topic. Is
Yeah,
going in and performing some of those more advanced filters in analytics.
I would love that. And also segmenting your analytics. Do you know how to do that, Greg? Showing the segments?
Segmenting your
Yeah,
analytics.
so you can. I think I've got a little to do, how to somewhere. We'll look that up because that would be a really good one to do because I like to pull out the like the paid
Sounds like a
Facebook stuff.
sounds like a Pip and Phelan topic. We'll get
Yeah,
them on it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'll do it with them. It's a Facebook. I'll do the Facebook part. They can do the Google Ads part. Right on. All
Awesome.
right.
Well, I'm glad everybody who joined us for the 3:30 time
I
joined
know.
us.
I'm sorry about that, you guys.
Thanks for coming back and watching, and look forward to seeing you guys in a future episode.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I?
That was so good.
Oh, stop! I haven't. I can't. Shh.